You're watching SmallCapSteve live. I'm SmallCapSteve, the original cool. Today we're going to be joined by, of course, as always, Jay Lutz, the editor of the Deep Dive. But what's really important here is we're going to have my good pal, who I always get to hang out with at microcap events, who's always going to be, always fireworks when you talk to him. Kevin Shea, also known as the Good Prick. We're going to be talking how to interview microcap CEOs. We're going to be talking what's going on with all these Reddit, Wall Street Bets folks. We're going to be talking electric vehicles, anything. We're going to go crazy. It's going to be a wild show. So tune in, buckle up, let's go. Welcome. Today we're bringing the guest on right from the get-go because it's my show, so I make the rules. Okay, don't be emailing us. Don't at me. I'm just gonna break the rules. Kevin Shea, are you there?
I'm here, buddy.
I'm thrilled to have you. Kevin is a guy who I met at a microcap conference back before all this COVID stuff started. We all used to go to these things called conferences and interact in person. And there was always these, when you go to a microcap conference, there's always some strange characters who are just really passionate about microcap stocks. And I saw Kevin, he got this thick New England accent. And it just, I got the sense he wouldn't take shit from any CEOs, no matter what they wanted to tell him. And I said, I got to talk to this guy. I got to get to know this guy. So I went over. I think I had a beer with him, and we kind of hit it off. Does that sum up the story there, Kevin?
A bit of it. You also told me that you thought that I was a prick. and I said, well, yeah, if I am, but I'm a good prick. Okay, and that's how the whole thing started. And we started bullshitting about how that would be a great handle and all that. And so, yeah, we took it right there. And yeah, I'm a very, very hard questioner when it comes to interviewing CEOs. And so you were somewhat correct, but that's just hard questioning more than being a prick. So
you actually broke this down to your Twitter audience, the story of how you came up with the name, the Good Prick. You want to walk us through this tweet?
Well, it kind of comes from the standpoint that I'm a very aggressive interviewer. When I deal with CEOs, I am very, very well prepared. I do a lot of due diligence, and because of that, I can ask hard questions because I know what I'm talking about because of research that I've done. But the most interesting thing about it is that I walk in prepared, and I walk in knowing what I want to know. So with that, I already have substance that can be directed toward the CEO. But what the first question is that I ask any CEO, pretty much across the board, is, tell me what you do in 25 words or less. And the follow-on to that is because I start snoring at 26. So with that going on is, you can always get some idea as to whether or not the CEO is prepared simply because of the fact that if they can't do it, what the hell are you talking about? It's an elevator speech.
I love that, because when I go to these events, whether it's a microcap, conference thing, investor event, you sit down and you start going through meeting with different CEOs, and they always hop right into the weeds, and they never take 30 seconds to just tell us what the company does. And whenever I work with a publicly traded company and they ask me for advice, that's always what I tell the CEO. When you sit down and you pitch investors, it's like you're a teacher and you're giving a lesson plan, right? You've got to give them the mental pillars to understand this thing. And it blows my mind, and I'm sure you've sat through more investor presentations than I have, the amount of times you sit down for an investor presentation and the CEO doesn't take, a minute to describe the business, and they just start talking about random aspects of the company.
Yep, absolutely right. I mean, that's more often than not. So the interesting thing about it is that because I'm the good prick, one of the things that I do is that when the guy starts on word number 26 or 27, I tell him to stop. Just stop. Okay, I'm done. Not I'm done, but I get it. But you can't answer the question. So with that, what I do is that I'm already prepared, and I will actually read him what I wrote that I think that the company is doing, and that's really eye-opening because I sit down and say, well, you are blah blah blah, and the CEO looks up and he might say, well, yeah, that's what we do. It's like, well, why couldn't you tell me that? So that's how the whole thing starts off. And to some extent, maybe have a bit of an upper hand, but if the guy can answer the question well, we might have a very, very good conversation. But again, it's one of those things is that can this person tell you succinctly what they do and do it in a way that I can retell the story to my grandmother? And if my grandmother can understand it, then it's done a great job. And that's really what it comes down to is that can somebody that's being told repeat the same thing in a different setting, because that person, like myself, might become a corporate salesperson for the company if the company is obviously a well-run company. So there's a lot to be had there. And as I said, is that the given that start, the other thing I also will do is I will also sit down and tell the CEO to put the stupid IR deck away. Just get it out of your hands. I didn't even want to talk to you about it if you have it in your hands. I've already read it. Okay. Not only have I read it, but I've gone through every little word on it and parsed every little word to the point where now I have questions. So put the deck down. Don't read it to me. And that opens up a whole lot of new lines of conversation, simply because of the fact that we're now talking about how this person is executing, what the strategy is, what the vision is, and how it's defined and how it's presented to you. So it basically is it's good that way, But again, you have to be prepared. If you're not prepared, you're not giving the CEO their due, nor and you're also basically taking a bit of yourself away from it. So with that, it can become fun. I've been through a lot of CEO interviews in which the last comment that's made by the CEO was something to the point where that was fun. You asked a lot of hard questions, and more or less, thank you for doing that. I've had a lot of guys say that was the best interview so far today. So it works.
Mm-hmm. Does anything stand out in terms of memories of a CEO where you have asked them, like, any stories you could tell us or anecdotes from these years and years of meetings without mentioning any names?
Yeah, the one that I referenced on my pinned tweet was most fascinating when I walked in, and this company was in the medical device business, and I walked in and there were two guys there, and so I looked at the guy, and I didn't even ask the question about 25 words or less. I just asked the guy, "Why are you the CEO?" And he basically babbled. This is astonishing. He babbled, and the reason why I asked him, because I had seen what he had done, and he may very well have been the smartest guy in the room. But seriously, the smartest guy in the room, because listen to this: he has an MD, a JD, an MBA, and a PhD. Okay, this is what the guy has. It's like, wow, you must be the smartest guy in the room. So with that, I asked him what he did. Why is he the CEO? And he basically said, because I invested in the company. And I said, well, that's not, who cares? I might invest in the company, but I'm not going to be the CEO. So that's quite fine. And I just checked out recently what the guy is doing. And not only that, he also calls himself the chairman of the board, the CEO, the president, and the CFO. I mean, this guy must have a head about this big, don't you think? Good God. I mean, they have to kind of widen the door for him to walk into it. And then the worst part is, dig this. They make about $500,000 a year, maybe $700,000 a year. They pay the CEO is paid $400,000. The COO is paid $280,000, and the chief strategy officer is paid $240,000. So the three of them take out more money than the company makes. I mean, tell me that you're going to invest in that company. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what they did. So the other, this is a classic. So they sometime in the middle of last year, they come out with we are in COVID. We actually provide COVID solutions. immediately upon making that statement in reaching the press, they basically released the financing.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. I mean, this company is it's like what? That was fun.
Do you have an issue with and I know that's hotly contested amongst retail investors, right? Let's say a company doesn't have a lot going on, right? Or they have some stuff going on, but nothing to get investors excited. But they could do a tiny pivot that doesn't still focus on what their core business is, but do a tiny pivot, suck in a bunch of traders and retail investors to go and raise money, put more cash on the balance sheet, help reduce their cost of capital by just, controlling optics. Do you think that that's an awful thing?
Yeah, I think it's stupid. So why is it stupid? I mean, because their business is focused on one particular aspect of providing services or products to a market. Okay, so this really comes down to one of the things that I drive home almost every time I talk to anybody. Companies should stay focused. Okay, if you can't focus, then what the hell are you doing for me as an investor? Okay, and if you're pivoting, this company is into this company I talked to is into spine repair. Okay, and all of a sudden they're doing stuff with COVID masks. I mean, shut the hell up! Come on. And they use that to raise financing. I said, no, that's a big lie. So the idea is do your business, produce your products, do it well, do it really, really strongly with regard to your marketing and sales and product development and things of that type, and you'll do well if you have a product that the market wants. So this whole idea of what happens is that customers come up to these people and CEO and say, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice if you did this?" Okay, which is 180 degrees off of normal, and the responses are oftentimes, "Well, let's look into it." No, you don't look into it. You just say, "That's stupid. That's not what we do." So again, if you listen to some of these CEOs, they sit down and they get enamored by all this cool stuff that's somewhere way off in hinterlands. I mean, well, if you can do that, why shouldn't you do this? And that basically is very, very distractive. It takes time and effort. You're now into two different markets. Sometimes you're into two different distribution channels. And so I keep asking the people, so there's a company that is Canadian. They actually are in the mining business, but they haven't got a mine yet. But they're also in the product business. So the question I had to the guy up there, I said, "Are you in the mining business? Are you in the products business?" And he said, "We're in both." And I just shook my head. And after that, it didn't go well. And that was one of those virtual calls. It didn't go well.
Yeah. To those tuning in right now, if you got any questions or comments for Kevin about interviewing microcap CEOs, please let us know in the comments. Kevin, here's a question I got for you. In the U.S., you guys got Robinhood, right? In Canada, we've got something called Wealth Simple. It's not quite it's nowhere near that level. How do you think Robinhood has affected the sort of small cap, micro cap investor who would typically be looking at all these OTC stocks that now is on this app where they get free trades?
Well, Robinhood can't trade in OTC stocks, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
They're not really, they don't have any impact there.
But doesn't that drive capital that could have been invested in the OTC plays and those junior plays away? Because now instead of those degenerate investors looking for yield and high risk, they're now, instead of looking for those OTC plays, they're now playing the options markets on Robinhood.
That's a money loser, isn't it? Playing options when you haven't got a clue.
I don't know if you trade options. I piss my pants every time I place an options trade because I'm afraid I'm going to open one up and then just basically ruin my fucking life because options are sophisticated and
Yeah. I sure ain't. When it gets right down to it, I can't deal with that stuff. I mean, not only that, but how can you deal with the spread that's 50 cents, ask and 23 cents bid?
Steve can't deal with it very well. He calls us often when it happens. He's like, "Guys, this is driving me nuts. I gotta get out."
Yeah.
The last time that happened was March.
You know, options are set to fuck you over the long run because I mean, ultimately, you know, you're buying in, and the entire thing is decaying. I mean, why are you buying something that's decaying? No, I don't get the idea of options. You know, I'm sure that there are a ton of people who lose a ton of money on it. It's just it's appealing from a gamification type of perspective. You know, well, I'm gonna make myself really rich. You know, I don't know, but you know, the impact of Robinhood is on microcap. I don't see it, to be honest with you. I don't see it. I don't. Maybe I haven't been paying attention, but I don't see it. The one thing that I think is really interesting is to watch where the money is going. And the money, you basically introduced this thing about EVs. There's a ton of money going into EV. You can watch it every day. You know, like Workhorse and Nikola and of course Tesla. But everything. There's also a bunch of hangers on. You know, Solo and AYRO and a few others. You know, there's a lot of money going into those companies because they have no revenue, but they have a market cap that is just astounding. So, I mean, there is money chasing interesting ideas. You know, battery technology certainly has been one where money is flowing into. Look at QuantumScape. Again, I don't own any of these things. But look at QuantumScape. I mean, that's the craziest damn thing in the universe. I mean, they had a market cap bigger than Ford Motor Company. They had no product and no revenue. I mean, that's the epitome of being crazy. So I've taken to calling a lot of these companies, you know, the crazies, because of what's going on with the hugely dispersed interest between share price and revenue and market cap. I mean, it's.
I have you been following any of this on CNBC where we get these talking heads, you know, the huge blowhards, they come on and they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, right? Like in one sentence, it's they're siding with the the Wall Street bets crowd because that's the people, they want to be, you know, the guru of the people, but then on the other side of their mouth, it's like, oh, none of this makes any sense. Valuation wise, this is stupid. You know, short sellers are healthy for the market. It's just like, what's your take again? You just want everybody to like you?
I've never watched CNBC, and I will not watch Cramer, and I won't do anything else that basically interferes with my way of thinking, to be honest with you. I mean, you don't want to be talking head, I don't know what you want to call it, but you don't want to be editorialized to, or for that matter, promoted to by some talking head who, as you said, might not be talking out of the side of his mouth, but could be talking out of the bottom of his pants. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's striking to me how many people will actually listen to the ongoing activities and make their decisions based upon that. I mean, these guys are all promoters. They're all shystering you up to some level, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. I mean, in the case of Cramer, he's got a well-known history of less than desirable actions when he operated as a hedge fund manager, right? Like, I don't know why anyone's ever followed the guy personally. But one thing notable this morning, right before we went live, AOC actually said that she supports a congressional hearing on Robinhood and these other apps limiting trades on certain names just through volatility.
Well, the interesting thing is, just this morning, about 2 hours ago, I posted a poll on Twitter with regard to will the feds try to take a class action suit or a RICO against Robinhood. Okay. And, you know, it's one of those things where why not? I mean, the government can do whatever the hell they damn please with regard to suing somebody or doing something. So I think that there's a real likelihood of a knee-jerk reaction. Maybe it's necessary, maybe it's not. But, you know, I've had other conversations with people with regard to this ongoing craziness and whether or not, I mean, the idea of why aren't you allowed to do naked shorting if somebody else is? You know, and why can't you buy stocks to short them when somebody else can?
What's your thoughts on short selling as a whole?
I think it's a balance. It actually balances the market. I mean, literally, let's face it. When you sit down and look at something like, again, QuantumScape, okay, no revenue, no product, market cap 32 billion. Was that what it was at one point in time? Makes absolutely no sense. 0 cents. You know it's going down. the other ones, for example, I did a little bit of history on this thing. You remember what Angry Birds? Remember Angry Birds?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think the company was called Rovio. Okay. They went public, right? That was like that was like the stupidest thing ever. I mean, I'm going to short that right from the get-go. I mean, really. Okay. Same thing with Candy Crush. I think it was called King. Symbol was King.
Yeah, King.
Same thing.
I don't know this ticker symbol, but yeah.
I think it was King. Again, it's one of those things. Those are easy. Those are totally easy. That thing's going to go to zero, okay, faster than you shake a stick at. Okay, so I think there are reasons to do shorting. I think that there are some who will short because the name has become a little bit overbought. Okay, I can tell you that in technical trading, you can kind of see it beginning. Okay, I have this technique that I use, and I've actually made it myself. But you can begin to see tops. And so if you could short the top, all the better. But the problem is I can't find anybody to sell me shares. So it's kind of, that's the other thing about this whole thing. I have a disadvantage when it comes to playing in the market. I think that's the thing that this is exposing. This whole crazy stuff that's going on today or last couple of days.
Okay, so let's talk electric vehicles. I know you got a lot of passionate thoughts about electric vehicles. Where do you see this space heading in the next 5 years? Like, do you see a world where, you know, your next door neighbor to the left and the right of you both have recently bought a car in the last, 2 years, and or last year, and they're both EVs, and I'm talking like, let's say 2025. You see that happening, or do you think that this is all just sort of a capital markets thing?
Let me just preface this by saying a long time ago, I was engaged with one of the Ford big three when they had their first electric vehicle.
We lost them. Yeah, we were talking before, and we'll wait for Kevin to get back on about some of these names like Solo, and it's interesting because we view it from the Canadian junior market investor, and they're so focused. They just the dynamics are so different in the U.S. of what actually is generally working. In Canada, it seems like you can in this market you basically take a shell public and you're going to get some traction. In the U.S., it's like, is Solo an OTC stock, or is it NASDAQ?
I think Solo is just the one vehicle. Like it's like a Silverado or
okay, yeah, it is NASDAQ. So you don't see a lot of these like little tiny micro.
Are you back? Am I there?
Type names. Yeah, you're back. They're back.
Oh, did I go away?
Yeah, it looks like you're having some internet connection issues.
So I think what happened was I took my computer off, and I'm sitting out here. I think I ran out of battery. We'll see.
Oh.
So you were talking about electric vehicle.
Yeah. You were saying you were engaged by one of the big three. Which of the big three was crazy enough to hire you?
Well, both of them. Well, not both of them. Both of them. Both of them. Yeah. So no, I did a lot of work with Ford. I did a bunch of work with GM. I did some work with Chrysler. But GM had the EV1 back in, I don't know, 1990, something like that. Mm-hmm. It was running on lead acid batteries, So there was a lot of work going on there to try to improve battery technology, and a bunch of companies were involved with batteries way back when. And of course, it's been significantly improved. But I think the current issue that I think has to be dealt with is the charging time and the range that they can get on batteries. If you don't solve those problems, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of popular attention to these things. I drive across the country every year, and I can't stop. I don't want to stop, at mile 402 when I have 630 miles to go, but I'm stopping for 45 minutes to charge my battery. That's a little bit inconvenient. In fact, I said that before, and somebody chastised me for saying that was a bad thing to say.
Do you know anybody who owns a Tesla? Because everybody I know who owns a Tesla loves them, and I know that Jay is cringing hearing me say that. I only know
absolutely,
a few, I only know a few, and they love them.
Okay, they're the worst. They're one of the worst performing companies for warranty that exists right now in the country. Okay, worst. Mm-hmm. Their warranty is something like 6 to 7% failures and stuff. Nobody ever wants to talk about that. Ask them how much time their car spends in the shop. Okay. That's the fascinating. If you look at the data, again, and this is very consistent in the car business. Same thing happened when Toyota began to take over back in the 70s, late 70s and early 80s. No one would ever tell you that they had a bad Toyota. That's just generally, that's not what happens. Okay. But then again, Tesla, they're burning up. Okay. They don't have they fixed the braking problem, but they had a big problem with braking. So to some extent, one of the things that is known in marketing circles in the big three, again, if you want to take it, for what it's worth, they see this thing as saying, I don't know why they're getting it. Similarly, the other thing about it is NHTSA doesn't go after Tesla. I don't understand that either. I mean, when they had these fires, they would have shut down every other car company just for the recalls. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. That's on the side.
So that's what's really bothered me as well, is there seems to be no safety standard. It's like calling something autopilot, which inherently is not autopilot. To me, that is a legal nightmare for literally any other company out there. Why Tesla gets a pass on it, I don't know. The build quality, I don't know why people like the build quality of these things. Like, it's terrible. Yep. In the previews for the Model Y, the stitching doesn't line up on the seats.
Yeah.
That's a preview. What do you think your build quality is going to be like? Like, I can go get a car for $20,000 and it has way better quality.
Yep. It's called fit and finish. And that's the easiest thing in the universe to get right. I mean, it's very, very simple. It's like you said, you can see the citrine going like this. If you put your finger along the door, that's fit and finish. And that's what the car companies get right. So the other thing about it, if you really want to take a look at autonomous, that's serious business. And that's right now that the majority of car companies are at what's called 2+. Okay, and that means you can take your hands off the steering wheel as long as you're looking at it and ready to operate, ready to intervene. Okay. When Tesla's they're talking about 4, okay, which is sleeping while you're driving, okay, basically. And I don't think there's not a car company out there right now that would even go further than 2+. So there's a lot of hype going on, I think, in this whole thing about autonomous drive and LiDAR and many, many things like that. So it's all out there now. Again, am I invested in some of these things? Yeah, I'm invested in LiDAR. I'm invested in trying to figure out what the best battery technology is. I think the battery technology is going to significantly improve. I think that the idea of, like I talked about earlier about graphene, I think that a graphene battery is going to be an optimal solution because it has massive amounts of density to it, charge density, and it's light, so it's unbelievable. So that the 2025, 2035, which has been the goal for a lot, I think it's generally achievable, okay, based upon new battery technologies. And if battery technologies don't change, I'm not quite sure if we will. But I do believe that battery technology is going to be pretty damn significantly improved.
So you said you had worked with Ford and Chrysler, GM in the past. What specifically is your background?
I'm a degreed mechanical engineer. But I also worked, this is really weird. I spent a lot of time with the DOE and worked in alternative energies. Okay, so I'm familiar with the origins of solar, wind. In fact, I did a thesis on geothermal energy. So that's how I got involved with the alternative side. So I've seen the histories, the development of move from alternative energies to renewable energies, and that's kind of an interesting thing. Then again, I also started a couple of different companies. I started a software company. I was engaged in management consulting for quite some time in a variety of different areas, but mostly in process improvement systems and systems development, things of that type.
So micro cap investor.
Yeah.
you're crazy like me. We're the kind of guys, we hop in our car, we drive down and go meet with management teams because we love this stuff. Obviously, you've been around long enough to know that when there's a hot sector, you can make a lot of money picking the right micro caps in said sector. How are you playing the ESG names right now?
I can make an argument for just about anything is ESG. I can make a great argument that nuclear power is ESG. Okay, I mean,
I've been hearing that.
Well, it is. It's definitely the best thing since sliced bread because it hasn't got any impact upon the climate.
I was told that from one of the big uranium names. They said that they had an ESG fund that was sniffing around them.
Yeah, I mean, as I said right from the very beginning, is I made up a list of those companies that are ESG favored companies, and they never would have been in the past. So I can make up stories for anything. Anybody in the healthcare industry has to, by definition, end up in the ESG file. Everybody, every one of them. I don't care what you do, what you make, every one of them. So all of the healthcare insurance companies, every one of them, because they're helping people. It's a little bit exaggerated in some ways because it's anybody who basically improves.
But do you not ever look at these things and say, okay, we got a hot sector. What are the kind of names that are likely to run? Are we looking for companies with strong IP? Are we looking for companies with tight share structures? Are we looking for companies that have certain, in the micro cap world, it's obviously good to know who's behind each deal because you know how much money they're going to put into promoting it. Or it almost kind of sounds like you're straight up kind of, you believe in only investing in things that you can get behind the pure fundamentals on. Would that be a fair statement?
I will only invest in those things that I can understand. Firstly, I won't invest in mining or oil or drugs or REITs or a variety of different things. I just don't get them. I can't grasp them. So that's number one. When I'm looking at early companies, I'm looking at is the idea viable? Does it sound like it's viable? How big is the total available market? To that end, I've gravitated into companies that are global, because if you're global, your markets become hugely different than if you're basically doing something in just simply in the United States. So there are some things that come in that I think have to be evaluated. But I think you really have to determine who you are first, what you want, what your life is like. I mean, it's far different from me making decisions on a company at my maturity, as opposed to somebody who basically just started and is operating, in his 30s or whatever. So far different when you start looking at the nature of it. Go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting you. Someone just brought up a comment here. Control Energy BioCloud KNR. Yeah. I apologize for interrupting you. I got to excited. You're in this name, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay.
Actually, I was in it. I was in it very, very heavily until recently.
Okay. So are you still in it?
I have a very small position. Yeah, I just want to watch to see what's going to happen.
What is it that, because when I first got pitched on it, I was like, this is really, really interesting. I think that this
still is
this idea that you can detect COVID in the air using like some sort of like filter machine type thing. Yep. And then I started asking around to some buddies who understand this stuff, and they told me, A, there's other companies working on this technology, sure. and B, there's 1,000 reasons why it won't work. Sure. Why is it that you ended up, what is it that got you hooked onto this name?
The idea, the potential was there, and again, it's global, it's necessary, and I kind of rationalized it in the long run to being just like a defibrillator. You know how they have the AED sitting in basically in every building that you go through these days. So if I could comp it to a defibrillator, then I can see it. I can see what it might potentially be. Now, they already have some pilots that are out, and the one thing that I'm a bit concerned about is that these pilots haven't turned into much.
Does it not concern you when you look at a name and it's like, this is off the top of my head, so forgive me if this is incorrect, but they were like a blockchain company turned cannabis. turned AI, turned like a COVID story. Does that not, because that sounds like something that you typically veer away from?
Yeah,
no?
I looked into that, and that's a little bit blown out of proportion too, by the way.
Okay, and
I mean, it's true, but it's blown way out of proportion. They're an HVAC company.
Okay, so you're saying that like this kind of gets back to what I said before. Like it's a tiny pivot so that you can lower your cost of capital and raise money to focus on what your core thing is. Do you not see that as an example of that actually working?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So like they're making these tiny pivots, right? Like that, like the whole detecting.
Yeah. I did think that was a concern, right off the very beginning, and I did express it to others. Sit down and say, well, how are they going to get into the product business when they're basically in the service business right now? So that was definitely an early on conversation that I had with others. Yeah, it's still an open question.
Yeah.
However, when you look back in some of the histories of the people that are on the company, that they've already done stuff like that. So I don't know whether or not it was a pivot per se. I mean, they're not pivoting out of their core business, which is air quality and air filtration, HVAC, and things of that type. This is just another product that could be placed in that area. However, if they all of a sudden decided that they're going to be producing masks, I mean, that's kind of stupid. One could argue, but again,
it's an interesting name. I'm not short, not long. I almost did hop in though when I first heard it.
I made money on it.
Yeah, a lot of people did. What's the other Canadian names that you're in right now in the microcap world?
Well,
any?
The one name I did mention those names on graphite and graphene. I just think that's going to be a long opportunity for many. Nouveau Monde.
We chatted with the CEO. Was it last Friday?
Yeah,
that seems like a real deal.
Yeah, well, they got a real deal. They're already in production, which is one of the reasons it's not a mine. It's actually that they've got production and they're producing quality output. And now the question is that who's going to step up to the plate? And everybody's waiting for Tesla to say something. So we'll see what happens when in fact there's going to be any sort of contracts coming out of that. So the name that I'm really kind of interested in is TAT. TAT.
TAT blockchain. Okay.
No. TAT cigarettes.
Oh, yeah. The hemp-based. I was thinking towel.
I'm telling you something. I've never seen a CEO as well who understands the market as well as this guy does. It's shocking to me that this guy. Every time I listen to this guy say something, it's like
understands the stock market or understands the market.
Understands his business.
Okay.
Here's my take on. Again, I follow this thing. What this guy. Well, first the guy's name is Shea Cuscarella. Okay. He comes from PMI, Philip Morris. He worked at Philip Morris for 3 years in the exact same spot of the heat not burn products, which is the vaping things, and other related products that would be alternatives to nicotine. However, vaping is not an alternative to nicotine. It is nicotine. Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing to me is that what happened with this guy is all of a sudden he shifted from being a PMI to being on this tiny little company. My assessment of the entire thing was that the guy already had a plan. He already developed it with PMI. He already spent 3 years rationalizing the plan, refining the data, determining how to execute this thing when it's necessary, when they find them the right product. I think he basically had everything in place, and all of a sudden, this product just fell into his lap, and he took the opportunity, and he's just implementing a plan that was hatched at PMI, and that to me is pretty exciting.
That's a name that we've seen a whole bunch of traction on in terms of social media. Do you monitor social media at all when you're trying to figure out whether to exit or enter a name? How important is that for you in your discovery process for microcap names?
It just screws me up. I don't pay much attention to it. I have to determine what I want. I get isolated. I make up my own mind, and I discount whatever anybody else is telling me. There's way too many crazy people out there who live and die minute by minute on something happened. It's like
Okay.
crazy.
Did you ever buy any of the cannabis names either in Canada or the U.S.?
I just bought Aurora this morning.
Oh God!
Aurora.
You know what I like about a trade? Jeez, this is why. This is why I'm going to scream at my producer Chris. I don't want any more of these technicians on my show anymore. A trade.
It's a complete technical buy.
What do we have you on here for? Aurora. That's an
I don't even know what it does. Do they sell me?
It's an instant banning from the show.
I don't know what it does.
Aurora?
It just came up on my screen.
Let me see if I can pull up. I have a chart here. Let me see if I can pull it up where we actually have like the actual. It's gonna take me a second here. The earnings of all these names, but give them a quick little background on Aurora. There,
I bought Tilray at 300. I thought it was a good deal.
Jay, break down Aurora. Kevin doesn't know what he owns, so you tell him what he owns.
I understand that it's close to bankruptcy. I don't really care. I'm only going to hold it for 3 to 4 days.
Yeah.
Trade.
It's probably going to be bankrupt by then.
It might be. Who the hell knows?
Aurora Cannabis is a cash burning machine.
I understand
that's really
that.
what it comes down to. But for someone that just spent the last hour talking to us about fundamentals, this hurts me.
Yeah.
Well, I told you I go back and forth. I mean, I basically support my technical analysis with fundamentals where it's appropriate. A lot of people have asked me to do a technical analysis on immune precise, for example. You really can't for all that matter. It's not doing anything. So I said, yeah, I know what's going on. Everybody's waiting for news on IPA. It's about news. Okay, so it's not about the technicals. But if somebody wants to follow on a technical, tell them don't do it. Wait for the news. So it's a good balance to basically have a full and clear understanding of the fundamentals plus technical. If you're making some decisions, and other decisions, you just basically do it on a complete technical analysis. ACB complete technical analysis.
I know that you like some of the U.S. names. You've looked into them. You've met with my hero Hadley Ford. That worked out well.
Hadley, yeah. Boy, did he ever screw things up, huh?
Oh boy. Oh, my mom's gonna kill me. She bought a bunch of that at like.
Didn't he hire his daughter or his wife or something like that, or his girlfriend?
That ended in tears.
He also ended up having. I think he had on his board his former. I think the guy was his former classmate, roommate, dormitory mate. Back in school, the guy from Intel.
Was that the CEO, the COO? I forget his name.
Julius.
Yeah,
okay.
I remember Hadley. He'd get up. He'd be wearing a nice suit, and he'd say, "I got the guy who got the best production at the best semi-fab conductor manufacturer in the world, and he's gonna take over U.S. cannabis. You just watch." And then they fired him like 6 months later.
Well, rightfully so.
They moved him down to like lower management.
And then the jamokes that took over are still jamokes.
Yeah.
If you know what a jamoke is, by the way.
But so what I find interesting about a lot of these U.S. names is that they actually, some of them are producing EBITDA, insignificant EBITDA at that.
Right.
Operating cash flow. Fundamentally, if I'm Kevin Shea, who says he likes fundamentals, but hearing you buy Aurora, I don't know anymore. I don't know what to believe. Some of these names must get you kind of excited, no? Like Curaleaf and
Curaleaf, I think, is the best company out there.
Why?
I think they have the best fundamentals of everybody in a well-rounded management and things of that type. It's just that the whole sector. If you're trading this thing, you're trading the sector. You're not trading an individual stock. It's just a question of pick one. Okay, in my opinion. So so I think what's happening right now is everybody's waiting to see whether or not the new administration is going to give any support to federalizing cannabis in the United States. But that'll be a sector improvement. It'll float all boats. Okay. On the other hand, is that the chart that I have and pulled up in front of me for ACB it has a chart pattern that says this thing is going to do something, or could do something probabilistically. Okay, so again, you take the probabilities of what's out there because of the technical stuff and play the game. There are people who basically want to see cannabis, federalized in the United States. So that's a big push.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, here's a chart I made. This is the original. I young Justin, who got named as part of the short cartel on Twitter.
Short mafia.
Short mafia. He helped me with this. But you can see here, like a couple of these names, they're producing positive adjusted EBITDA. And I know, okay, adjusted EBITDA is what it is. But even if we look at that operating cash flow, I mean, Green Thumb, Cresco, they're both doing positive operating cash flow. Trulieve has posted some big quarters with positive operating cash flow in the past. Like this isn't Canada, right? Where in Canada, I don't know if you're aware of this, Kevin, but nobody in Canadian cannabis, with the exception of maybe Village Farms a little bit, like they maybe make a little bit of money, but nobody really makes money in the entire space. And then I look at these U.S. names and I go, yikes, this is pretty exciting. Does this not fall in your wheelhouse at all? Knowing that like there's probably a sea of institutional capital waiting to get in once the regulatory hurdles get broken down?
I don't follow the cannabis business in the United States. I might participate.
Okay, let's talk psilocybin. Other than participating in psilocybin, which
I did that in the past.
It's funny because it used to be frowned upon. Now it's like you're enlightened all of a sudden if you experiment with some drugs. What do you think of this movement? Do you think that this is just classic?
I think offline we're talking about it, and I think it's realistic from a standpoint of mental health. Ultimately, if you recall, things like LSD were in fact produced to be a drug, and were not necessarily meant to be a lifestyle type of deal. So there's a long history, 50-year-old history, maybe even longer.
I think it's at least 70 years old.
Hey, watch it there, kid.
no, just LSD in general. I know that locally I'm in the middle of nowhere here, and one of the largest research centers for LSD was in a small town in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. So the thing that's out there is I think that the underlying, it's a little bit like the GWPH. That's a company that took the THC.
Yeah. GW Pharma, and they make Epidiolex, which is effectively they have the patent on CBD that is legal in the U.S. Would that be accurate?
I think that there are. I mean, I think I did a little bit of reading on Compass CMPS. They're actually working it. They're doing. I don't know whether they're doing preclinicals or not, but I think it's done. I think it's being done in Britain. So I don't know. I mean, in England. So I don't know what the whole bit of it is, but I do think that there are people out there who see and have seen the nature of the way in which cannabis can do things. Both sides, but on the other hand, I think there's much more interest in the psychedelics because of the history shown in the cannabis business, where what was it, 2019? What the hell? That's when Tilray went crazy, and the other ones were doing pretty well also. But so I think the people are looking to see whether or not they're going to see the same historical trends repeat.
So what's your thoughts on everything here? Let's talk the Robin Hodlers, as I like to call them. You think that this is are you siding on the institutional investors and those capital city fat cats want to shut this down, or are you siding with
as I wrote on my Twitter account? I'm just basically eating my popcorn right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to end badly for anybody who's invested in some of these things. As I also wrote, if you did whatever, but I wrote it felt like the battle of Anorak on the Ready Player One, where all the virtuals came together and had a big old fight. So that was quite funny. But I think that let's just call them the feds, to include both the federal government as well as the New York bankers. I don't think they're going to give up that soon. On the other hand, I think that it might very well end up with some small changes. They could eliminate naked shorting. They could pose a tax on day traders. They could do a variety of things that could impact or at least respond to what's going on from a did you read it? Did you read that they called the Muppets versus the Sharks? That was quite funny.
Muppets versus the Sharks.
Yeah, research that. That's a good one. Some Wall Streeter.
Yeah. I think of Muppets as the people who are just they're talking heads for somebody else. Are they referring to the Robin Hooders as Muppets?
No, yeah, kind of. Just just Google it and you'll find the article. It's quite funny. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think that from what I see historically, the establishment doesn't give up easily. Yeah.
So I broke down some of these charts here because I figured, hey, Kevin's coming on. Let's take a look here. We got GameStop, right?
Yeah.
Effectively, the model is they have these stores, which obviously nobody is going to any of these stores right now because of COVID, which made short sellers short the snot out of it, which made the short interest drive up, which created like a bit of a nice piece of meat for all of those Robin Hooders and Wall Street bettors to hop in and start buying the calls to try to force action in the stock. And effectively, all these have a similar story, But we look at this and it's like, okay, over the last, the last quarter, on a cash burn or operating cash flow basis, the company lost about $185 million. Now, with a stock price that's working, you got to assume that they're going to raise money, right? Like you got to assume there's going to be some sort of at the market offering, or they're going to find some sort of way to take all this traction in their stock to put cash on the balance sheet. And, another 4 quarters, let's say they raise $1 billion, that's enough to weather the storm and get through COVID. And I think that the thing that everybody kind of forgets here is that this is still a real business. Like it's going through a hard time, but there's real people who go and they go to a store every day. They work, they contribute. And this isn't just like, in Canada, we see a lot of these bullshit stories that like they deserve to be shorted. I got mixed feelings about this one. I don't know why, like if you got some shorts, they're getting squeezed out, but this gives an opportunity for the company to go find some new lifeblood. What the issue is, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a romantic about these things.
I'm not a romantic on anything, except for what I'm doing with my wife. I love my wife.
And psychedelic drugs, of course.
Yeah, of course. Okay, never mind.
Let's look at the next one. BlackBerry.
So the thing about you look at something like that is that it's so distorted. Everything that's going on right now is so distorted from normal that trying to basically normalize it is very, very difficult to do. Should GME go out and do a financing? Absolutely. Okay. Will anybody belly up to the bar? No. Okay. Why would you basically put out a financing for $200 when you think that the thing is going to end up being $18 in another couple of months? I don't think it's sustainable. So, I would never participate in a financing with something like that. On the other hand, is that's a good idea. Okay. So same thing with AMC, same thing with all of these companies that they'll ultimately come back. Why not? The AMC is, no one's going to stop going to the movies per se once they can demonstrate it. On the other hand, looking at these things from a chart perspective, you almost have to look at them on a 2-minute chart. I would do it. I wouldn't even use a 30-minute chart. I'd use a 5-minute chart and a 1-minute chart. It's just how crazy it is. And then, of course, what happens is you get screwed because you get halted. Mm-hmm. So why even bother trading it? I understand why you want to trade it, but I think the likelihood of you getting caught is pretty severe.
I'm getting a lot. I don't know about you, but in my little world, a lot of friends and family know me as a stock guy, and I'm starting to get a lot of text messages and calls saying, "Steve, should we buy this game stop?" And it's like these people who normally never gave 2 shits about the stock market, they're all piling in. Does this indicate a top?
The thing you got to look at, if you really want to figure this thing out, go read about the dot bomb, right? The dot bomb had almost exactly the same issues going on with it. It was a huge melt up. Everybody was throwing money after bad. None of these companies really were any good. None of them. Amazon came through it. Netflix came through it, and a few others did. But most all those companies didn't survive. I mean, Wayfair was part of the was started way back then. So there are some, but the stories that you can read in the .bomb era, they're the same. It's the same stuff, except for it wasn't driven by the crazy stuff of whacking the shorters. It was all done because of just fundamentals and failure to have more money, and there was good money after bad, and then the money ran out.
Speaking of Wayfair, I tweeted this out a while back. If anybody wants an update on this story, I ordered a couch. I just moved out to the suburbs, got a big house so I can get some space to get through COVID, and I ordered a couple of couches for the basement for Wayfair because I couldn't get good couches down. So Wayfair, you get these assembly couches, come in a box, and they send the one couch and it's got two left arm pieces. It's missing the right arm piece. And so my wife's like, no big deal. We'll just, make a complaint, and they said that they'll send us the new piece. So what do you think happens?
I sent you a new sofa.
A week later, I got a whole new sofa.
Yeah,
box.
You know why? It's cheaper to do that than it is to take the thing back, dress it, fix it, and all that stuff.
But what am I supposed to do now? And by the way, this was 3 months ago. That box with the new couch is still sitting in our living room, and my wife's getting pissed at me. She's like, Steve, you better do something about this fucking extra couch in our living room. I don't know what to do. Do I just take out the one piece, put the rest of it in my minivan and drive to the dump and toss it in the dump? Do I or do I try to give it away? Every store is closed. Do I have I'm not a Kijiji, or I don't know if you guys have Kijiji, Craigslist. Have a random stranger come by and pick it up. I'm still I just, I don't know what to do here. But there's been this giant cardboard box in my living room for 3 months, and I'm nervous my wife's going to leave me if I don't find a solution soon.
Oh, I get the solution. It's very easy. Just put it out in the middle. Put it out in the street. Put a sign on it that says free. It goes away, and it'll end up in some 28-year-old's guy's basement.
Well,
or it will become a dog bed.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it's easy stuff, man.
Well, Kevin, we should probably wrap it up here, but I appreciate you just coming on and just riffing with us. It's always entertaining to get to talk to you, and I hope that when this COVID stuff ends, we'll still be, conferences are going to start back up again, and I'll be sitting with you at a table, giving a CEO shit over not properly presenting his company.
Well, there's a lot of that going on as we started with. So the thing is, one of the questions I had from another guy who asked the question, he says, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "I just yell stop at the guy." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm over it. Just get off topic. Just stop."
I don't know how relatable this is to our audience, how many people sit in on presentations from these microcap companies, but sometimes these CEOs, they start talking and they don't shut the fuck up for 30 minutes. And it's just my brain can't process you talking for 30 minutes. I can't do it. Yep. Slow down. Have a conversation.
Yeah. That's a perfect example of a guy who can't sell.
Yeah. You got to engage people. It's like teaching a lesson, but
you gotta listen. Oh yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm looking over here on the chat thing, and I know all about Bus. That's interesting.
Yeah, but Bus feels like a promote to me. Are these guys going to sell buses? Is this going to be a thing or not? Is it going to be a thing?
That was the other thing. I think they're getting a little bit of the EV rush. They basically ran up on a bunch, and now they're coming back down again. But yeah, I know the company very well.
Yeah. Here's another tweet we just got. Robinhood restricts trading on GME and AMC. My lord!
Yeah, that started this morning. That was at 7:00 this morning.
Yeah, well. Luis Eduardo wants to know: is this legal? That's the question, Kevin. We know the news. We were all drinking our coffee, watching CNBC, but is it legal?
Hey, what's legal these days? Come on, man. Is it legal?
Yeah.
Well, so the other question is if as I said, if the federal government pulls a RICO on Robinhood, is that legal?
I'll tell you how this is going to end for Robinhood. It's going to end in one of two ways. Either one, we're taking your options away, or two, we're taking Robinhood away. And that's how.
I'm going to argue it will not be number two, and the sole reason I say that is because Citadel has profited way too much off of this whole ordeal, and those who have the money make the rules.
So you don't think that Citadel is being investigated right now by members of some organization within the federal government?
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah, I'm sure they are too.
Those who have the money make the rules. That's literally what we've seen this last week, right? I mean, my confidence in the rule of law has fallen off quite a bit.
Yeah, it's not the last week. It's the last 2,000, 3,000 years.
Yeah.
Well, so, Kevin, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was just gonna say, is there an investigation? Probably.
Probably. I'll find out about it soon. I wouldn't be all surprised. I wouldn't be all surprised if you hear something from the federal government next week.
Well, here's the deal. If it happens, I'm going to tell my video staff to take the clip of the good prick calling it. We'll title the prick or the clip. The good prick calls it. It will put it all over Twitter that you called the investigation 1 week in advance.
It'll be some silly whatever.
All right. Well, Kevin, thanks so much for joining us today. Very quickly, Jay, what's going on the dive this afternoon?
This afternoon on the dive, we have Venture Point Diagnostics. George Adams, who is the CEO, will be on the daily dive in about a half hour here. This afternoon, we've got a couple analyst notes that I did not get to edit before we went live. So
these are from young Justin. He's young. His name's Justin, and he loves sell-side analysts.
And yeah, I mean, I've got some great content lined up for this weekend just because my week's been so busy. I've got stuff from Braden Mackey and Jim McFadden outlined for both days, I believe. Here's
another one. This guy, his username is WB3. Pissed SNDL was shut down too. I got a call from a cannabis CEO down in the U.S. this morning saying, Steve, what's going on with Sundial? And I go, I don't know. It's a piece of shit. He goes to me, yeah, it is a piece of shit. Yeah. And then I look at it, and I'm like, it's got $1 billion market cap, and it's trading volume.
The best part there is they're actually doing an at-the-market offering, so Sundial's profiting like crazy off of this right now. Yep. But again, Sundial's a piece of shit, so it's a heavily shorted name, and they went after the shorts. I didn't really see anything on Wall Street Bets for Sundial, but that's clearly what's happened after looking at the chart for literally 5 seconds. They just seem to be shutting down anything that has any semblance of volatility.
Sundial, if I'm the management team for Sundial, I say thank you to the Robinhooders. I raise as much money as I can, and I wait until some regulatory hurdles get cleared, and I pour into the U.S. market. I look at some of those smaller names, should they still be small when that time comes, those tier 3 names, and I try to find a way to tell a U.S. story, or not even tier 3. In a perfect world, you're going to find some good private operators. There's still a few left out here. And you're going to use that cash to go put those names on your balance sheet and income statement, because then you got a real story to tell. Because like Sundial's story, it was a flop, right? Like I don't even know where they're.
I'll give Sundial credit here. Story was a flop, absolutely. However, they've been doing ATMs for the last 3 months or so. They managed to pay off all their debt, and they had an outstanding amount of debt as of even like last June. They paid all that off. Then they went and spent $60 million buying up someone else's debt so that they could build interest on it. That's since been paid off because Zenabis basically said, fuck you guys, we aren't dealing with you. So they're going to have a massive cash position, and it's good timing for them.
Yeah.
Kudos to them. They managed to turn around the pile of shit they had.
Well, and Kevin, I hope for you that Aurora is able to find the same traction in their stock that Sundial did.
Not going to be there very long.
What attracts me about Aurora is that NOL that they've accumulated over the last few years. That's going to be a hell of a tax shield. The only problem is you're going to have to find a Canadian cannabis name that makes money to shield it with, which is like a significant challenge, because you can't just. My understanding is there's a whole, like, we're getting way off topic here, but in the U.S., if you just have a shell that is lost a lot of money, you can pretty much apply that NOL to anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not like that in Canada. You can't just.
It's just in the wells, right?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be in the same sector. I actually looked into this.
Really?
Yeah, because there's so many cannabis names, but they all suck. They're all losing. They're all just cash incinerators, right? So you'd think you're going to have this all these tax shields, and it's just the challenge to that is you got to actually find somebody who can make money in order for that business model to work. Definitely, I don't know.
Make money. Is that the idea? Companies have to make money.
Yeah.
Oh, the small cap world.
Yeah. Well,
as always, we're here for entertainment purposes only. Neither myself nor Steve hold any financial licenses or designations, and it's opinion only.
No buyer. Nothing's a buy or sell recommendation, except for Kevin Shea, who's recommending Aurora. I'm kidding. He is not recommending anything.
Nope, I don't recommend anything.
No buy or sell recommendations.
Do my own stuff, man.
If this is just for fun, then we're just trying to help give the audience a glimmer into how we see the small cap investing world and how we see things. And one thing I appreciate very much about Kevin is that he always shows up at these events. He's learning as much as he can. And I think that that's your edge as an investor, sitting down and taking the time to go meet with these companies. I really appreciate you taking the time to just come on and hop on and sort of riff with us.
Hey, it was a cool time.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. A class action lawsuit or class action complaint has already been filed against Robinhood in the Southern District of New York.
Woo! He called it.
It didn't even take 15 minutes.
There's your link, Steve, if you want to pull that up.
I
will give a shout out to our good buddy Brandon Bruiser for that one.
The good prick calls it within I have an ear for that stuff. It just comes out. No,
actually, it was posted an hour ago, so you're behind.
Oh, I was on this. I was here with you guys.
Yeah.
I already posted it on Twitter, so I was way ahead of it. I posted it 4 hours ago. Actually, go back to the poll. When did the poll come out? I have to go back to find out when my poll was. My poll was probably 3 hours ago.
That's give me shit for typing on here, but I'll pull it up quick.
Yeah, let me.
4 hours ago.
Let me find it here.
You're ahead of the game still.
I could have bet on that one. I would have taken an option on that one.
Let me pull this up. There it is. There's the good pricks poll. Do you think the feds will bring a class action lawsuit or maybe a RICO against Robinhood and Wall Street Bets? There you go.
So, who's right there?
I put no.
That's a good one.
God, I look like a boob.
I'm just too old.
I actually put yes for the record.
Yeah. Well, great call, Kevin. And thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. This was a lot of fun, and I hope that one of these days you'll come back and we'll continue to chat trading, investing, and all that fun stuff. As you're a great guest and someone who doesn't just come on and just talk all corporate speak.
I'm going to cross the border and get into your cellar with you and see whether or not we can make this even better.
That'd be a fun one. We can call it the Friday wine down and
wine down. I'll bring the beer. I'm bringing. By the way, I'm bringing Bissell Brothers Substance. It's the best beer in New England.
Well, you're a big craft beer guy?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I've been drinking craft beer since I was about knee high. If I only bought Sam after I started drinking the beer, I wouldn't have to be talking to you. I'd be on an island someplace.
Well, Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. And we will be back tomorrow covering more of the Canadian junior markets for all you degenerates out there who love this stuff as much as we do.
Do we have a guest?